Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Senior Health Podcast, where we bring together ancient wisdom and modern science to help you live stronger, longer, and more fully after 60. I'm Dr. Mark Hyman, and today we're diving into one of the most misunderstood topics in senior health: sweet fruit. Yes, fruit. The thing hanging quietly in your kitchen, the thing you've probably been told to avoid because it has too much sugar. For years now, I've seen older patients terrified of even touching grapes, pears, or bananas, thinking these natural foods are sabotaging their blood sugar. And yet the truth is far more nuanced. To explore this properly, I wanted to bring on someone who doesn't just know nutrition or medicine, he understands aging itself. Our guest today is over 100 years old. He is still consulting, still teaching, and still walking daily. More importantly, he's helped shape how generations of Japanese elders live, eat, and thrive. He's a voice of clarity in a world that's gotten too loud and too quick. Please welcome back to the podcast, Dr. Shigiyaki Hinohara.
Thank you, Dr. Hyman. It's a pleasure to be here again. And to everyone listening, wherever you are, whatever age you are, know this: aging is not a slow decline. It is a quiet shift. And how we treat that shift, how we nourish it, matters more than most people realize. In Japan, we've never feared fruit. What we do fear is imbalance. We don't ask, is this food sweet? We ask, when is it eaten? How is it prepared? What is it paired with? These questions shape how we age far more than any single number on a nutrition label. When I hear that elders in the West are giving up apples or grapes out of fear while still drinking chemical drinks or packaged snacks, I feel concerned. Not because of the fruit, but because of what it says about our relationship with food and with our own bodies. So today I hope we can bring a bit of calm back into that conversation, because sweet does not have to mean dangerous. It can in fact mean healing, if we know how to approach it.
That's beautifully put, and I love what you just said. It's not the sweetness we should fear, but the disconnection. So let's reconnect. Let's bring fruit back to the table, but with wisdom, rhythm, and respect. Today, we're going to walk through 5 fruits, common, accessible, and yes, sweet, that actually help support blood sugar stability in seniors. We'll explain why they work, how to eat them, and how to make them part of a daily routine that feels good, not stressful. Doctor, shall we begin?
Let's begin. And let us begin small, because sometimes the smallest fruits carry the deepest medicine.
So let's start with berries, blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, strawberries. In the U.S., we tend to think of these as summer treats, maybe tossed into cereal or blended into a smoothie. But very few people, especially seniors, realize just how powerful they are, particularly when it comes to supporting blood sugar regulation. Berries are naturally sweet, yes, but they're also packed with fiber, and that makes a huge difference. Fiber slows down how quickly sugar is absorbed into the bloodstream. And beyond that, berries are rich in compounds called anthocyanins, deep red, blue, and purple pigments, that have been shown in multiple studies to improve insulin sensitivity and lower inflammation. There's even research from the University of Eastern Finland showing that seniors who consumed berries regularly had lower post-meal glucose spikes and better long-term glycemic control. That's not magic, that's biology working with nature.
In Japan, berries are not considered dessert. They are considered function. They are small, but their message to the body is strong and clear. You are safe to digest. You are supported. We often serve a few berries in the morning, not with sugar or yogurt loaded with flavoring, but with something neutral, plain tofu, or simple fermented yogurt. We believe the way you begin your day influences everything that follows. If you begin with a sugar spike from toast or jam, you begin on uneven ground. But if you begin with something like berries, It sends a calming signal through the gut, through the nervous system, and into the bloodstream. I had a patient 84 years old, a retired teacher, who told me she always felt foggy until noon. Her breakfast, a biscuit with jam and sweet coffee. We simply replaced it with warm barley tea, plain yogurt, and 5 blueberries. That's all. Within 2 weeks, she said, my thoughts come earlier now.
That's such a gentle, powerful example, and it speaks to something I try to remind my patients of all the time. Food doesn't have to be extreme to be effective. Berries work not because they overwhelm the system, but because they support it quietly, consistently. And you don't need a blender, you don't need a fancy bowl or a trending recipe on Instagram. Just a small handful, maybe 1/3 cup, eaten slowly. Let the body do the rest.
Also, we must not forget the importance of chewing. When you chew, you do not only break food down, you begin digestion through the mind. Chewing berries slowly gives the body time to receive their message. If you rush, you miss their instruction.
So true. And let me just say this for our listeners. Frozen berries are just as beneficial. If fresh is expensive or hard to find where you live, a bag of organic frozen berries in your freezer is one of the best tools you can keep. Doctor, anything else you'd like to add about berries before we move on?
Only this: do not confuse gentleness with weakness. Berries are gentle, yes, but they are not weak. They are quiet healers. And in aging, we need quiet healers more than ever.
Let's move to apples, a fruit that seems innocent, but has somehow landed on the maybe list for so many seniors with diabetes. I've had patients tell me they're avoiding apples entirely because they've heard it's full of sugar. And yes, apples are sweet, but that sweetness is wrapped in fiber, antioxidants, and polyphenols that actually help your body process glucose more effectively. There's a wealth of evidence showing that the fiber in apples, especially pectin, helps regulate digestion, slows down carbohydrate absorption, and even supports a healthy gut microbiome. Yet despite all that, many people still feel nervous about eating them.
In Japan, we rarely fear apples, but I must admit we do not treat them casually either. We don't snack on them while walking or driving. Instead, they are sliced carefully, sometimes shared, and often eaten after a warm meal. But Mark, let me ask you this: in America, why do people peel the apple and throw away the skin? That is where the most valuable compounds live. If you remove the skin, what remains is mostly sugar and water.
You're absolutely right, and it frustrates me too. I think there's this deep cultural fear of anything hard to chew or bitter, so people strip away the very part of the apple that contains the antioxidants and the fiber. It's like buying a book and throwing away the pages because the cover is more comfortable to hold.
Then they juice it or blend it and drink it in seconds. But what the body receives in 2 seconds, it cannot understand. The brain barely notices it arrived.
That's an important distinction. I often say, don't drink your fruit, eat it, especially something like apples, which were designed to be chewed. The act of chewing signals to your brain food is coming. Slow down, prepare insulin, skip that, and you get a sugar hit without the metabolic breaks. But let me play devil's advocate for a moment. Some of my patients say apples make them hungrier, that they spike blood sugar and then crash. What's going on there?
It depends on the context. If you eat an apple alone quickly in the afternoon, when your blood sugar is already dropping, it can cause a swing. But if you eat it slowly, paired with a few nuts or even a small piece of fish, the effect is very different. The body reads it as nourishment, not urgency.
That's such an important nuance. It's not just the food, it's the timing, the pairing, and the pace. An apple eaten alone in the middle of a stressful day is a different experience than an apple enjoyed slowly after a warm meal. Also, I think people forget apples come in so many varieties. A tart green apple has a very different glycemic profile than a soft, overly ripe red one.
Yes. In fact, we often use the smaller, slightly sour apples in elder care homes. They don't raise sugar quickly, and their flavor is more grounding. Sweetness should never be flat. It should have depth, like conversation.
Beautifully said. So for our listeners, don't fear the apple, but also don't rush it, don't peel it, and don't eat it in isolation. Let it be part of something more balanced, more intentional. And if you've been skipping apples for years, maybe today's the day to try one again, skin and all.
Just chew slowly and notice how you feel. That's the true test, not a number, but your experience.
Let's talk about grapes. This is where things get complicated. A lot of seniors I meet tell me I cut out grapes completely. They're just little sugar bombs, right? And I get it. Grapes are sweet, especially the seedless ones we see in big bags at the grocery store. But here's the thing, grapes are also one of the most researched fruits when it comes to vascular health, thanks to a powerful compound they contain called resveratrol.
Yes, resveratrol is a kind of quiet guardian. It doesn't just help with blood sugar, it protects the inner lining of your arteries, supports circulation, and reduces oxidative stress. But I must say, Mark, in Japan, we do not eat grapes like popcorn.
That's exactly the problem here. People snack on grapes mindlessly, usually while watching television, and suddenly they've eaten an entire pound without realizing it. There's no ritual, no awareness, no pacing.
In our tradition, we often serve 5 or 6 grapes, never more placed carefully on a small plate. They are chilled, served with hot tea, and eaten one by one. Slowly. That is how sweetness becomes medicine, not chaos.
So you're saying the issue isn't the grape, it's how we approach it.
Exactly. You Americans fear the food, we fear the context. A grape eaten with attention nourishes. A grape eaten in a hurry confuses the body.
That's such a critical point. The speed and the setting change everything. And we can't forget red and purple grapes, especially with the skin on, contain not only resveratrol, but also fiber and phytonutrients that help reduce inflammation and support insulin function. But when we remove the skin, or worse, drink them as juice, we lose all of that.
Juice is like reading only the title of a book and thinking you understand the story.
That may be the best analogy I've heard all year. But let me offer a counter thought. Some people truly feel a blood sugar spike after eating grapes, even a handful. Could it be that for certain individuals, grapes are simply too glycemic?
It's possible, especially if digestion is weak or insulin sensitivity is already compromised. But in those cases, I wouldn't ban grapes. I would anchor them. A few grapes alongside a slice of avocado or a handful of walnuts slows the absorption. Sweetness paired with fat becomes steadier. Think of it like walking down a slope instead of sliding down ice.
That's such a helpful reframe. So, we're not saying everyone go eat grapes. We're saying if you enjoy grapes, bring them back with care. Eat fewer. Choose darker varieties, always with the skin. And never straight from the bag while standing at the kitchen counter.
Also, never when you are sad, angry, or distracted. Sweetness must be received by a calm system. Otherwise, the body reacts instead of receiving.
That's profound. So to our listeners, if grapes have been on your no list for years, maybe it's time to rethink not just the fruit, but the moment in which you eat it.
Food is not just chemistry, it is ceremony. And grapes, perhaps more than any fruit, remind us of that.
Now here's a fruit that often gets ignored or worse misjudged as decorative. Kiwi. Small, fuzzy, slightly strange-looking, but beneath that rough exterior is one of the most nutrient-dense, blood sugar-friendly fruits out there. High in vitamin C, rich in potassium, packed with fiber, and then there's actinidin, an enzyme that supports digestion in ways most fruits simply can't.
Kiwi is interesting to me because it behaves humbly. It never overwhelms. The taste is balanced, the size is appropriate, and the way it interacts with the body is considerate. In my experience, it's especially useful for elders who struggle with heavy meals or irregular digestion.
That's such an elegant way to describe it, considerate, and I've seen it too. I had a patient in her 70s who always felt bloated after dinner. She wasn't eating large portions, but her system just slowed down at night. We added half a kiwi about 30 minutes before her meal, Not after, not during, and that single change made a noticeable difference. Her blood sugar stabilized, her digestion calmed. She even told me her dreams became softer, whatever that means.
It means her nervous system was finally resting. But Mark, may I raise a concern here? In many Western diets, kiwi is often drowned in fruit salad alongside canned pineapple syrupy mandarin and whipped topping. In such company, its benefits are lost entirely. I believe how a fruit is introduced to the body matters as much as the fruit itself.
You're absolutely right to bring that up. We tend to lump fruit together literally and nutritionally. It's all sugar, people say. But kiwi has a much lower glycemic load compared to bananas or melon, and its fiber content helps slow digestion. The problem, like you said, is when we serve it in chaotic combinations, usually cold, fast, and pre-cut by someone else.
In my home, we slice kiwi slowly. One fruit, my one plate, often in the evening paired with warm barley tea or a few soaked pumpkin seeds. We view it as an invitation to slow down not just physically, but emotionally.
There's something powerful about that. It turns eating into a form of self-regulation. And it's not just digestion. Kiwi improves sleep quality, reduces oxidative stress, and thanks to its prebiotic effects, supports gut bacteria that play a huge role in insulin regulation.
And yet I've met people who discard the seeds or worse, the skin. They want the benefits but remove the very elements that deliver them. Nature rarely gives us nutrition in separate compartments.
That's such a good reminder. So to anyone listening who's overlooked kiwi, maybe even walked past it in the produce section thinking it looked too fuzzy or exotic, here's a chance to reconsider. Peel it gently or don't peel it at all. Slice it slowly. Eat it before a meal if your digestion tends to be sluggish. Don't blend it. Don't rush it.
And above all, pay attention while eating it. That alone changes the way the body responds.
Let's finish with something subtle. Pears. Soft, juicy, easy to chew. Maybe too easy, which is why I think they get dismissed. I've had patients say, "Aren't pears just watery sugar?" And at first glance, I get that reaction. They're sweet, they ripen fast, but they also have some of the highest soluble fiber content among fruits. That fiber, especially in ripe pears, slows glucose absorption dramatically. Add to that their hydration benefits, something most seniors lack, and pears become less of a snack and more of a strategy.
Respect that view, but I must ask, do you think pears are too often used as substitutes for dessert in the West? That is where the confusion may come. When people eat pears instead of cake, they expect indulgence. And when the experience is mild, they feel disappointed.
That's an insightful point. I think we often misplace sweetness, expecting emotional comfort from it rather than metabolic stability. And pears, as you said earlier about kiwi, don't shout. They're not dramatic. But when eaten intentionally, especially with the skin, they're quietly therapeutic. Though I wonder, do you believe pears are strong enough on their own to improve blood sugar control? Or are they more like a supporting actor in the bigger meal?
I believe it depends on the person. For some elders with slow digestion and low hydration, a well-timed pear, especially in the late afternoon, can do more than just support. It can rebalance. I've seen it in practice. One patient, 79 years old, had erratic afternoon glucose levels. We tried medication adjustments with little result. Then we simply introduced half a pear at 3:00 p.m. with warm tea. Her levels began to even out, not drastically, but consistently.
It's amazing how often small and consistent beats strong and sudden, especially in older physiology. And just to clarify, for listeners, we're talking about real pears, not canned, not peeled and soaked in syrup, not baked into pie. Just a fresh pear eaten slowly, ideally with a little healthy fat like almond butter or a slice of aged cheese.
Exactly. And allow me to add how you sit matters. In Japan, we often eat pears near a window, in silence, just a few slices, no multitasking. That moment of calm allows the sweetness to land more gently both in the gut and the mind.
You know, that reminds me, I once had a patient who kept grabbing energy bars mid-afternoon, always rushing, always stressed. We replaced that with half a chilled pear and a 5-minute breathing break. Not only did her blood sugar stabilize, but she stopped snapping at her grandkids. Sometimes sweetness teaches us more than just nutrition.
Food teaches mood, and pears, perhaps more than any fruit, teach us to soften.
So here we are, 5 fruits, 5 stories, and hopefully a shift not just in how you think about sweetness, but in how you relate to your food. Because the truth is, after 60, every bite you take carries more meaning. Your body speaks more clearly, and it asks not for restriction, but for respect. If you've been afraid of fruit, if you've crossed apples and grapes off your list because someone once told you they're full of sugar, maybe today gave you something new to consider. Sweetness, when it comes from whole foods paired with fiber, eaten slowly and chosen wisely, is not the villain. It may in fact be part of your healing.
In Japan, we believe that the way we eat is a reflection of how we live. If we eat in fear, we age in fear. But if we eat with care, with presence, with gratitude, then the body remembers how to be calm. And calmness is often the beginning of healing, especially for blood sugar. Do not ask only, is this food good or bad? Ask, how does this food arrive in my life? When eaten with awareness, even a simple pear becomes powerful.
So to our listeners, maybe this week, instead of cutting something out, you try adding something in. A few berries in the morning, half a kiwi before dinner, an apple with its skin sliced slowly and eaten without distraction. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be real.
And gentle. Let your meals become quieter, steadier, kinder. That is the sweetness worth keeping.
Doctor, it's always an honor learning from you. Thank you for bringing wisdom, depth, and balance to a conversation that's too often filled with fear.
And thank you, Dr. Hyman, for allowing East and West to speak, not against each other, but alongside each other. Our elders deserve that harmony.
To everyone listening, take your time, trust your body, and don't be afraid of the fruit. We'll see you next time.